Welcome to Moving Experiences, Stories of the CTA. I'm Nora Leerhsen, Acting President of the Chicago Transit Authority. The idea for this podcast came from my interest in hearing stories of the CTA, from its employees, its riders, and the people who love the system.
You got to be the loudest person in that room when it's time for you to be the loudest person in that room. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean even saying a word. Mm-hmm. Let your presence speak for itself. Mm-hmm. Let your work speak for itself. Let your personality, your character, everything about you speaks. And guess what? You just happen to be a woman.
On this podcast, we're going to be introducing you to those people and having engaging discussions about transit and our great agency. Sometimes I even hesitate to ask the question about as a female leader. I think we can talk about those things that are unique to our experience, and we can also talk about how they're universal. We'll be setting a high bar with our inaugural episode. I'm joined by our Vice President of Rail Operations, Jeannie Alexander, and our Director of Bus Operations, Arlana Johnson. You were both role models for me that I called upon. And when I got this position, women like you are who immediately came to mind. And I continue to look up to you and all you do every day. Arlana, we could start with you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Chicago. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in the Gresham neighborhood.
Did you have a big family?
Yeah, we're kind of like the Brady Bunch. 3 boys, 3 girls.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where are you in the line?
I'm second to the youngest. Yeah.
Okay. And what was your house like growing up?
Well, as I think about it now, I wonder how we got by with just one bathroom, but do remember it being like just full and loud, all the time.
How about you, Jeannie?
So for me, I was on the other side of town. I grew up, born in Chicago, born and raised on the west side. For me, I'm a middle child. So middle child to a older sister, and I have a younger brother. Fantastic. So just the 3 of us, my mom, loving Chicago. Really, I was the youngest for quite some time because it's a really significant age gap between my brother and I, about 15 years. Wow. But for the most part, just, the middle child. So they often say I kick in that middle child syndrome a lot.
How would your childhood friends describe you?
My childhood friends would describe me as very bossy and direct. So I was always the friend if they would say, okay, I want your opinion on this, and I know you're going to tell me the truth. So that pretty much was how they would describe me.
Nice. How about you, Arlana, your childhood friends? How would they describe you?
My childhood friends would definitely describe me as a comedian, as the funny one, always got a joke or something sarcastic to say.
Did you give teachers a hard time, too?
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I was a class clown, but in a good way.
Yeah. That's so fun. What was high school like?
For me, high school was good. I really enjoyed it. I went to Chicago Vocational High School, CVS. They do have a new name now, but it was CVS when I went there. High school was fun. The summer before I entered high school, I found a love for basketball. And so I had played basketball like in the school playground like the entire summer before I started high school. So when I went into high school, I tried out for the girls basketball team. And to my surprise, I made it, And so right now, my name is Arlana, but during that time, a lot of my team was like, I can't, that name of yours, I never heard of that. Why did your parents name you that? We got to come up with a name, so they called me AJ. So until this day, most people refer to me as AJ, so that's how I got that nickname. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed high school a lot. It was a real close-knit class that I had, that I was in.
That's great. Do you still talk to friends from high school?
I do, yeah. Facebook brought us all back together when Facebook came out, so yeah.
I know. It's one of the good things about it. I do, too.
Yeah.
I'm planning my 25th high school reunion right now. It's quite something to look at your phone and you have this message from someone you haven't thought about in 30 years contacting you. But how about you, Jeannie? What was high school like?
High school was amazing. So, of course, I had my big sister who was 1 year older than me. I was a cheerleader from the moment I walked in. And it was just great. Classic cheerleader, just really enjoying it. And sports, even though I couldn't play, like basketball, cheerleading really was a staple. In our house. That's what we both did. My sister and I enjoyed it, and really she was the piece to get me to actually get on as a freshman. From there, it was running. Well, I absolutely loved it. I really just enjoyed being a part of everything that high school had to offer. Games, homecomings, you name it. So it was one of the best experiences for me. And you said you have your 25th anniversary, so I was one of the ones who planned our 10-year anniversary because I was really excited, and it's always nostalgic. We left the West Side and moved to Western Suburbs, so I attended Proviso West High School. Really big high school, a couple different suburbs, where all the kids go. And it was just fun because I went to school with a lot of people I knew. It wasn't like I didn't know people because we grew up in the neighborhood going to different feeder schools, but we all kind of got to go to the big high schools together, and that was fun.
What about the CTA during those years? Were you on the CTA? What's your memory of it then?
For me, because I got a job at the Brickyard when I was about maybe 15 or 14. I had a permit, and so I would take PACE, from the suburbs, but then I would get into the city, and then I could just catch the bus, to the mall and work, and I absolutely love it. I was exposed to the CTA from a very, very, very young age.
Yeah, same for me. I actually went to a high school. I really passed two high schools that was closer to me than CVS was, so I had to take CTA to high school every day, and they had the buses that would line up every day after school. Now that I know them to be school trippers that would line up to take us. So yeah, back then we had the guys at the back doors that would collect the fares and things like that. So I took CTA to and from school. When I started working at around 16, I used to work downtown at the Sears Tower, then Sears Tower, now Willis Tower. So I took CTA in the train to and from work. So it was always something that I knew about, something that I utilized. And matter of fact, some of the guys that were the fare collectors at the back door when I went to high school, I eventually wound up working with them when I first started at CTA.
Wow.
So I knew them when I was a kid. And now we're working together side by side.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
Tell me about that first job at the Sears Tower. What were you doing there?
So my first job at the Sears Tower when I was in high school, my major in there was home economic related occupations. So when you got into the work program, you had to get something that was, part of what you were majoring in school. So I got a job at Mrs. Levy's Deli. It was in the Sears Tower on the concourse level. And I was a hostess. I started out as a hostess. Then I became a cashier. And then they had a thing called Keys to the Future program. They saw something in me, I didn't see. I was just working, to get the grade before I graduated. And they kind of put you on a path to be a supervisor and later on become manager, which is what I did. So I worked there from 16 to around 22. And I did become a manager. I did go through the program. Then I eventually managed, they had a restaurant called Dos Hermanos, two brothers, that was upstairs. And then I also managed the ice cream parlor at the Lincoln Park Zoo because they also own that as well. So it was a big company. At that time in the 90s, they were like $1 billion company. So they were known worldwide. It was the Levy brothers. It was actually two brothers that owned the company. And I did that for 6 years prior to coming for CTA. That was my first job.
Yeah, that's a lot of hard work in that business. That's hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was a waitress for a while. I was not good at it at all.
Yeah.
But the restaurant business is unforgiving.
On your feet a lot.
Jeannie, how about you? What was your first job?
So my first job was working at Kmart as a cashier. And that was very short-lived. My next job was when I graduated from high school and, of course, somehow made my way over to CTA as an intern. And it was amazing. I didn't think that I would be at CTA, but as a third-generation CTA, member of CTA in my family, I was an intern. And at the time, my grandparents were here, my mom was here, my sister was here. And so for me, it was really fun. I actually was a currency counter over at 901 Division. And that's back when the buses collected cash. And so it was a wonderful experience. I can be honest, it was great money. I'm in college. We just got a great opportunity to work alongside some really professional people. I knew at a very young age that CTA was about being timely. Of course, from being raised by bus operators and my mom working here, I knew that time was essential. But once I actually got to work here myself, I knew that, hey, if you need to be at work at 0600, because learning the military time was very important being a CTA employee, but I knew that I should be at work at 0530. I truly believe that it was a great opportunity for me because although I was in undergrad, we still had fun when we were working, but we learned the essentials, of being committed to our work. And that was one of the things that, although I didn't realize that I would be at CTA many years later, took that opportunity for granted, and I stayed coming back to CTA continuous summers while I was in undergrad. So CTA for me was definitely one of the first introductions to actually having a real job that could have led to a career.
So fascinating, the 3 generations of CTA work in your family. So tell me about that. You were hearing a ton about CTA growing up?
Oh, absolutely. I always say I was introduced to, executive sessions when we were at Thanksgiving because, yes, my grandparents both drove the bus. My grandmother eventually went into payroll before she she retired. She started 4 years after the first woman operator, so that was really fantastic. They had 4-digit badges, so they wouldn't even know, what the new badges would. That would be something different for them. But yes, my grandparents, what I loved about it, they were very adamant, just about me showing up on time. So we had a special cadence for when my uniform would go into the cleaners right along with theirs. And then like my mom was here, my sister, and so I knew from a young age that CTA was about family. It could be time consuming. It was great. It afforded me a lot of opportunities, by seeing them come to work day in and day out. But one of the things that I love about it was that all the great stories that they had, whether it was, from their encounters on the bus, I always knew that they worked around some shopping center because everyone always bought home, something from Marshall Fields or something from, other stores that just let me know, oh, I went on my break and got these things or whatever. But for me, it definitely was really great to just see at a young age the hard work and dedication. So I just knew that CTA was a place where they just thrived. I really thought they had parties all the time, because even some of their friends, it seemed like they were family. So when I came as a full-time employee, I saw people at the garages where my mom worked who like, oh, I remember you when you were coming up here in your cheerleading uniform or things like that. But it was really good to see over time how everyone evolved in different roles. I never knew that I would, be blessed with this opportunity.
Wow. And Arlana, talk about how you came to CTA, because your father was a police officer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my father was a police officer, and I did want to follow that path, but I did not want to be a police officer. I wanted to be a detective. But there's levels to that, so I didn't want to start at the bottom. But anyway, in another world, CTA, back when I applied and would hear about it as far as a job and a career, it was the job to have. Either CTA, police department, fire department, like it was the job to have, but it wasn't easy to get. The line or the waiting list was very extensive. So I had applied for CTA because the restaurant business, again, like you said, is very taxing. The hours are long. I mean, sometimes you could work 13, 14, 15 hours a day on your feet. So I applied, and when I was pregnant, actually, with my second child, they called. Well, I got the orange postcard in the mail because that's how it used to come from the merchandise mart. And it was like, it's like the golden ticket. And if you don't take advantage of this opportunity right now, you'll miss it. So I did go down for my appointment, belly and all. I went down there and they put me through the process. And the lady at the time told me, when you have your daughter and you're ready to work, give us a call and you can get started. And that's exactly what I did. And that was in September of 1994. That's when I started my career at CTA.
Yeah, so you both started in the 90s.
It was just like yesterday.
Yeah, I know. It does go fast. I just love what you're saying, too, about the service that you both have in your family, from the police department or CTA, just that direct city commitment to work and how you grew up around that and how you're continuing it. It's just really striking and helped kind of build Chicago over generations, and you've all been part of that story.
Some of the moments for me, even being a student, and then you just continue to evolve in your career, it really didn't hit me until I oversaw the Blue Line, which was how I would get around, getting on at Des Plaines. And it was literally one day I was the GM. I just had a moment because I remember being a student, turning in my equipment and everything like that, and just knowing all of the different ways where I would travel with family and friends. I don't think I really took that in at first in other positions, but once I was in operations and just navigating, the good thing for me, everything that I've done, I've always touched the Blue Line. It's so funny to me how that's an area where I was an intern, it evolved and came back full circle where you get in a leadership position and you start overseeing it. And some of the things are the same, a lot of things were different, but I started to realize that CTA is something that is just continuous. No matter, in what capacity you use it. And for me, whether I was dropping someone off at the train or taking a train in another role, I always came back through, that Forest Park station. So for me, CTA was so much of a connection to me in the community because I would take it to concerts. I would take it to cousin's house. And a lot of people depend on it. And to know that my family was a part of that, I started to see the bigger picture once I was already here. I didn't really see it when I was younger. But as I got here, I saw how much they were invested in the community and how it really connected us as a whole.
One of the things I'm struck by, too, is the stability that CTA clearly offered, and that was known, and that's part of what attracted you both to the work. But then the energy and the fun that you find when you get there. Those two things are not necessarily, you don't get both of them, but it has this energy and life to it, and it still does, right? I think that's what we all see and love about it so much.
And to that point, it's fun, but then it's not even always about the fun. It's very impactful to your life because to the flip side of what Jeannie was saying, when I came, I developed such a family connection with my coworkers and management. They were kind of like an extension of your mom and dad. And during that time, I got really connected with a lot of the operators, and we just became really, really close. And it was at a point in that time that I didn't realize how much I missed family. I didn't realize how much I missed growing up with my brothers and sisters and having a family and having people that you could come home and talk to and play with and be with. It's almost like I wasn't a kid anymore, though. It's like you're not in Kansas anymore. But it affected me in such a way where even when I turned full-time and had to go to another garage, it was like my family was breaking up again.
Yeah.
And I felt that. And I didn't realize it until CTA brought that out of me. And I guess it was something maybe I was holding in or, unconsciously blocking. But even when I had to go to another garage and leave some of my family, it hurt me so bad.
Yeah.
The connections that you make here is the glue that really keeps you here. And even though I've moved up into a leadership position or whatever, I just can never forget, like, being an operator. That is, like, the best part of my career, was being an operator, boots on the ground, having those connections with the people at the garage and the people that was catching your bus every day, because you eventually start working the same route every day. So you start developing that family type of relationship with the customers.
And tell us more. What do you think creates those bonds so much in this kind of work?
I think we all have a story, right? Everybody's going through something. And sometimes you don't realize what in life could help you heal. Because I think that as we go through life, we're all looking and we're trying to heal from something, right? And it doesn't have to be God awful. But like I said, everybody goes through something. And I just think that when you get into a career or you get a job or you get in an atmosphere where you have a lot of like-minded people, a lot of people going through, those connections, and when you get and communicate with people, it helps you. I think people need that. And that's why I think even in my first job, I said it was so fun. In high school, I said it was so fun. Now that I'm older and I can think back and kind of understand life better, because we all have to go through something to get the understanding, I realized that 8-year-old Arlana, right, I missed family. Because to me, it all boiled down to family. And so I think a lot of people who feel that and go through that and they look at CTA as a family, I think it's because either they've come from a family of it, so that's what they're used to, or they missing that relationship. And this job, working at CTA, can give you that missing piece. And you don't know it, but it does. It gives you that missing piece, that connection.
I think, AJ, you're spot on because we spend so much time together. I know in different industries or jobs, people have their 8 hours or whatever, but it's in the capacity that we spend jobs with, right? So when you look at, the different situations, we spend time together, but we also have our successes together. And then if you have anything that, is a challenge, we go through those challenges together. And I think for me, to your point, when you got moved from that garage, I can relate to that. Even if it's a promotion, it's almost like it's bittersweet because you build up such a rapport and camaraderie, familiarity with people. I got married, while I was at CTA. I had both of my sons while I'm at CTA. And so one thing I know about CTA, we celebrate like a family. And there is no event that, that goes on where they're not trying to celebrate you. So, I was in a department where I was the only lady, but the guys got together and threw me a baby shower, right? Because they wanted to celebrate me. They didn't know how. They reached out to people, and it meant so much to me. And then when you get promoted and you go somewhere else, you still miss that because it almost felt like I had to start over in this new place. So it's like you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you're ready to take on the world in this new job. But then you miss the familiar faces, you miss the people who knew you and things like that. So I think the one thing that some people may not realize is that it truly is a family. Our logo, our brand, I can be out and see someone in their CTA clothes and you can tell, if they're an operator and what department they're in. I always acknowledge them like, hey, what do you do? What terminal are you out of? Or what garage are you out of? Because, we still have that connection. I think it's because, to AJ's point, you have that familiar feel. It feels like a family. And I truly think that CTA does that, and it's almost unintentional. But it's just the type of people that work here, the South Side, West Side argument that you have all the time. I know we'll put some North Siders in there too, but everyone, when you're here, you always hear them, what side of town you from? Where you grow up? Just to see if they can connect either from maybe going to the same high school or lived in the same area. But I think that just speaks to us as, that's a Chicago thing anyway, wanting to acknowledge that, but CTA definitely really encompasses people who live on all sides of town and then just coming through all walks of life. Everyone, when they come here, they have that sense of family. I tell my employees all the time, you all spend so much time together at work, and then you'll maybe see on social media that someone had a party and they're all there. And I'm like, you don't get tired of seeing one another? Yeah. And I just want to add, one of the employees said, honestly, Miss Alexander, my coworkers are my family because we spend so much time together. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there because I always hear that family component.
That's so moving to hear from both of you. I mean, I think we throw that word around a lot, CTA is a family, but to take a minute and really talk about where that comes from and deepen that, I really appreciate hearing all that. And I think it's interesting to talk about the time aspect too, because a distinct part of family is that you're connected to them 24 hours a day. That kind of what distinguishes us, right? They're the people you see at 6 o'clock in the morning when you wake up, and you'll see them again when you're going to bed in your pajamas. And there's that kind of personal touch. And there is that aspect of the fact that we never stop. Connects us all in a way that's very distinct. On top of so many other things. I mean, hearing you talk, I'm thinking too, just about, we see things. We see hard things. We see happy things together. And the bonds really make it a distinct workplace in that way. But there's also the celebrations, right? Because family is, who do you gather around for a birthday party? It's your family, right? Those are around a big table, the baby showers and the celebrations. And yeah, it's a really special place for that reason. Talk about, you've both mentioned kind of moving up and the experience of that, even some of the part that's hard about that, because you're leaving those bigger groups. Talk to me about that experience and how you reflected on that.
Yeah, so for me, I made a conscientious decision when I started to work my way up, and that was I did not want to move up or do anything different until my children were of a certain age that I felt comfortable with them being able to take care of themselves, be home alone, cook real meals, not a hot pocket, but be able to eat real food. So once I did that, and that was around when my oldest was like 16 or so, I started to, because people around me that I started with were already moving up. And I was happy for them. I was like, I got to wait. I can't do it right now. So I kind of strategically started the process, but I had no idea that it would come this far at all. There were many people that saw things in me that I didn't see, the capabilities, or if I saw it, I didn't believe it. You know what I mean? So they believed in me enough to say, you should be this and you should do this. So that's what I started to do. And I became a clerk first, and then at the same time I went into supervision. So I had dual qualifications. Then I went into management, and then I just started to rise in the management levels from a senior manager or business manager, to senior manager to general manager to where I am now. So it was kind of, once it happened, it just took off from there. But it didn't just happen. I kind of planned the beginning of it at least. And then it just grew from there.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your restaurant work as a young person, you were identified as a leader too, right? Yeah. So people were noticing that about you your whole life. So when you came here, you kind of knew someday I'm going to really keep growing, and you were planning it out? Or did you know that the whole time you were here?
No, I didn't know it. I felt like it was the right thing to do because people around me were kind of moving up. I was like, okay, it's only right that I take the next level. Because at that time, after 16 years of operating the bus, it wasn't until about that time that I realized there was other opportunity here. I was kind of in my silo bus operator. I knew the rail existed. In fact, I wanted to work on the rail when I first got that golden ticket, but they were only hiring for bus operators. So again, you got to get in while you could get in. You got to take what they offering. So I realized then, like, wow, it's other, because I saw the people around me. One individual was driving the bus. Next thing I know, I'm checking to her in the morning. She's the clerk. Or I'm pulling up to a service stop, and there's the girl I started with. She's a supervisor. So it's like, wow.
You see it.
I see it, and so you start to believe it's possible because you actually see people you actually know doing it. Not just hearing other people's stories that you don't know who they are. I know these people really exist, and I watch them do it. So, I didn't realize it, and I didn't see myself nowhere near where I am today. I didn't. And it took me many years to believe in my own strength and capabilities. I mean, I'll be honest. I've never been one to believe in what people said. I would find not the negative, but the worst case scenario. But I realize now that it was there all the time. Because as you just said, and I didn't even, till you just said it again, when you said, even in the restaurant business, people identify you. Because I never said I wanted to go in the program. I never said I wanted to go and be a supervisor in a restaurant. My boss came to me and said, hey, kid, I think you need to get in this program. We're starting this university and this program, Keys to the Future, and you're going to get in that program. He was an older guy. Sam Sennett was his name. And, yeah, he saw that. And you're right. It happened early, but I just didn't know.
Yeah.
We definitely have a similar story. And I'll say this now, I'll apologize to Rail Ops later. But when I came back full-time, I was applying for a lot of bus ops jobs. And I'm getting the interviews, but I wasn't getting the job. When I did come back into CTA after being an intern, I actually was in the West Shops. And I've worked in several departments from within the infrastructure area to training. I went into safety for a stint, but I landed in rail maintenance. And up until now, being in rail ops as long as I have, that was actually where I was, rail maintenance training. You had a young aspiring teacher, right? And I got a job as writing training programs for the repairers that fix the rail cars, right? A rail car is nothing like a car. And then I'm not a mechanic by trade, right? But I loved it because I was determined to learn about the job, right? And one of the things that was very significant was no matter what job I was in, people would always say, oh, you're not going to do this for a long time. Jeannie, we don't see you being in these pits and doing these things. This is a greasy job. But I always knew deep down that I wanted to be in rail operations. As a matter of fact, I actually thought I was going to be in instruction, because my background is in education, and I just knew that somewhere that I was going to go and fulfill this dream of being a teacher. And I can honestly say I had a 5-year plan. And I don't understand how you have a 5-year plan at CTA to leave after 5 years, but you never apply for a job anywhere else. and I can sit here honestly and say that I've yet to apply for a job anywhere else. But, if HR pulled all of my resumes, I did a lot internally because it was fulfilled. And when I always felt that, definitely similar to what AJ stated, I always wanted to master everything that I was doing before I went somewhere. I can be very, very cautious. I don't want my next move to not be good. I always want my next move to be my best move, right? I would try to learn everything I could about that role until we become a real operation. Just working up through the ranks and trying to learn as much as I could, I can honestly tell you, even to this day, I love what I do, but I never, and you never supposed to say never, but I never thought that I would be in the role that I'm in. It just wasn't on my career trajectory for me. But as I continue to just navigate in the different spaces, I'll be honest, although it wasn't on my radar, I started to look at it and say, you know what, I can do this, and I can do it this way, and I want to improve these things, or why didn't we ever do this before? I think being in this role, it helps me to really look at things we've done in past practice and see how we can expound on them. But I truly believe that possibilities are endless because you're in this job. And excuse and present company, you're the boss, right? So you get to get these ideas and do things. But I never thought that this is where I would be. And I guess just in this space, maybe looking at limitations or not having that normal career move, as others. But I can honestly say that it's a decision that I certainly don't regret. Coming to work, no 2 days are the same. And that's a CTA thing, right? I'm sure every department, no 2 days are the same. I can tell you that I'm going to have coffee before I get on this conference call. That's probably not going to happen, right? But that's what I like about it. The hustle and bustle, no 2 days are the same. But I say it keeps you young. It keeps you going. It keeps you smiling, and even smiling through the adversity, it really is a really fun place. And if you think about all the things that we're exposed to and then the things that as an agency we're a part of, the fun aspect, back to AJ's point, it really does resonate because it truly is fun. Now, all days may not be fun, and some days can be longer than others. But when I look at everything holistically, for me, it really is a fun place to work. And I only update my resume when I'm told to do so because I'm not sending it anywhere. So, I look at that as a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I identify with that too, that pull once you're here. And all of a sudden the years clock by and you can't believe how long you've been somewhere and you've never thought about being anywhere else. I totally identify with that. Everywhere else can look kind of boring.
Right.
Right. And everything's so meaningful here. I mean, there's nothing small, right? The turn of any wrench, it's so impactful what goes on out there. So what about being female leaders? We haven't talked about that. Transit gets described as a male-dominated industry, and it is still. How has that played into your path? Have you thought about that you're a female leader, and how does that play into your everyday?
Well, for me, it's who I am, and I don't try to mask that, right? I am very proud of being a female leader. It's important because I wanted to show up because I truly believe that women leaders can be very nurturing. And it's just the way in looking at a situation, maybe looking at something and giving it the benefit of the doubt, or asking those probing questions because something may not just be straightforward on the surface. For me, I think that is very critical because it's not that I can, say I'm one of the boys, because I grew up a tomboy, even though I was a cheerleader. But I'm not afraid to go out there, roll my sleeves up. And early on, I did feel like I have to do exactly what they're going to do so they won't think that I'm soft, right? Mm-hmm. But in all actuality, it was really just me breaking down those barriers of what I would consider maybe insecurity, because I didn't have to do exactly what they do. I just have to know why you're doing what you do, whether I'm leading you or working alongside you. I just truly feel that even as a woman in leadership, I can show up gracefully in our profession on a daily basis, because transit is not always clean, it's not always pretty, but I choose to show up as a leader, being graceful, being compassionate, because I know that I'm very passionate. I do make sure that I monitor that, because you don't want to come off as angry because you're a woman, and it may not be looked at as being assertive, as opposed to it could look at as aggression. But I am very passionate about what I do, and for those who are in close proximity to me, work with me, or in meetings, I believe that they understand that passion, and I don't want it to be looked at as, oh, Jeannie's just acting like that because she's a lady. But I truly believe that for me, showing up, leading gracefully is one of the things that I try to display, because I want to pull back for those women leaders that are behind me and let them know that you too can do something like this.
Yeah, I shouldn't have let you go first, because you pretty much said a lot of the things that I feel. So ditto, you answered that spot on, because me too, growing up with brothers, growing up in the house with my dad, growing up with a father that was a police officer, very strict, very stern. I've always knew that you have that meme where, hey, I could wear a pair of high heels and a skirt, or I could wear a pair of steel-toe boots and overalls, right? I've always been a person that has constantly spoken up. And I feel that's what women need to do. You can't go in the corner and cry. You can't go and hide. You can't go and wait till you get home and just scream in the room. You got to be the loudest person in that room when it's time for you to be the loudest person in that room. And I don't mean even saying a word. Let your presence speak for itself. Let your work speak for itself. Let your personality, your character, everything about you speaks. And guess what? You just happen to be a woman while it's happening. So I feel like, at the end of the day, all you have to do, you just can't be, you cannot be afraid to speak up. I mean, that's really what it amounts to. And we've kind of been conditioned as women, especially when we get into male-dominated positions, to just be quiet. They're not going to listen to what you say anyway. But you never know unless you speak up. So that's my biggest advice.
Absolutely. I was going to say, if you was going to come to rail, you can't have your steel-toe boots.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you both are saying, too. I mean, and it's sometimes I even hesitate to ask the question about as a female leader, because it's about being a woman, but it's also not about being a woman. It's just about being a leader, right? But I think we can do both. I think we can talk about those things that are unique to our experience, and we can also talk about how they're universal and not just apply to women. But it is a reality. I mean, even I've been struck by taking on this role in the past 6 weeks, and I've had situations that surprised me that I did not see before, right, as chief of staff, because that may be more tolerable to certain people to be sort of in a supportive role. But then when you're front and center, people have different reactions. So you all have those titles too that kind of can bring out reactions that might surprise people across the board. But I mean, I do want to say I feel universally supported in that way here, but my mind went back in history in a way it hadn't before. When I took on this role, I kind of felt the clock turn back, I was thinking about decades before me in a way that I hadn't before, about the 50s and the 60s and women that took things on, and just felt connected to history in a way that I hadn't. And it's been an important thing to reflect on, so I appreciate reflecting on it with you and hearing what you say when you think about other women watching you and that the importance of that. Tell me about other women or men that you've had in your life that have been role models for you by name or just kind of in general, how that's played a role in modeling for you your career.
Yeah, so for me, I've seen several women leaders here at CTA early on in my career, but more so as I, became a manager. I got into management where I was actually in that environment. And Jeannie Alexander is one of them that you admire. You look at the strength and you look at the fierceness that they display, all in an elegant way. And you say, wow, I want to be like that. That again, what Jeannie said and what you just said, it's all about women of today setting that example for the women of tomorrow. We have a responsibility to do that. We can't just be in these positions and say, well, I made it. It didn't happen to me. I'm not going to worry about it. You have a responsibility to pave the way for the next generation of women. And so even, again, we talk about people like Mary Wallace, first female bus operator. Maybe in hindsight, you'd be like, all right, so what's the big deal? Until you hear her story about how they didn't have uniforms for women. They didn't have restrooms for women. Nothing was established or set up for a woman to do that job.
Yeah.
She had to come in and navigate and have a man stand in front of the restroom so she could use the restroom.
Right.
And when you think about it in that way, it's just like, how could this be? Who thought this was okay? But somewhere, somebody decided it's not okay, and I'm going to change the narrative long before we got here. And so I feel we have a responsibility. So that's why I make it my business to always, any female and anybody, but especially any female that reaches out to me and says, hey, I want to do this. How do you do this? What time you want to meet? Let's talk. Here's my number. Call me anytime. Let me know what you want to do, where you want to start. Let's talk about it. I make that my mission. And you can ask anyone. I make that my business. I'm not just saying that to be saying it. I don't care who it is. I don't care what level they're on. I make time to do that because I feel very responsible because somebody did it for me.
Absolutely. I really agree with you, AJ. And I think for me, just having mentors, right? So I have mentors that are within transit. I have mentors that are just in my personal life. And I also serve as a mentor. And I think that is so important, to AJ's point, because you do have people who may not know where to start. And they may not know how to speak up and advocate for themselves. And I just think mentorship in general is something that is so important because a lot of people, they're afraid, whether it's male or it's female. But one of the things that I do want to highlight from the women mentors that I do have, I always talk to them and ask those questions just about like them leading, whether they're a CEO, of an agency, or they're just working in the president of a not-for-profit. How do they show up? And I just want to acknowledge that although we may not want to point the finger or say, things are different, we do have to realize that women are different from men. And I like what AJ stated because we did have an opportunity to connect with Miss Mary Wallace. And people don't think about those things of needing to get specific uniforms, having to have a restroom, right? Because accommodations do need to be made. And that's one of the things that is not that it's special treatment, but I like to share with my mentees, you're a woman, and if accommodations needs to be made, don't be fearful to ask for that. It's not that you're asking for special treatment because you may be different than your male counterparts, but ask because this is what you require. So anything that I approach, I don't feel that is something that's custom fit or tailored to fit Jeannie. I ask because this is what I require. And I'm not afraid to ask for that as a woman. I just so happen to be one, and this is what I require. And I tell people to acknowledge who you are. Don't be afraid to set those standards. And I think sometimes it gets misconstrued because you're a woman and they may feel like, oh, you may be asking for things or special treatment. But no, in all actuality, speak up for yourself because you are your best advocate. No one can advocate for you in the manner in which you could because you know what you require. And I always tell them to speak up. And that's something in talking to, mentors or people that I confide in. This is your space. Like AJ said, when you walk into a room, you command the attention. All of those things that comes along with who you are. That's your brand. That's your persona. And, that is something that I really admire within myself, because I'm not afraid to challenge the status quo or to speak up. It's not that I try to defy a no that I receive, but I'm not afraid to ask for a justification either. Or why can't it be this way? And I tell people, I think sometimes women are silenced, and in this industry now more than ever. Nora, you are a prime example. We've never seen a woman leader in 77 years of CTA's history, existence, right? And I think that is an opportunity for others to look at, not just with me and AJ. Now it's like, oh, wow. Some people may have never thought that they would see something like that in their tenure here. And I don't think that women should sell themselves short.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to add to that when she said, speak up, speak up. And yeah, it's so true. But then we have to keep in mind that there are people who they just not going to speak up, right? They're quiet people. But always know somebody's watching.
Yes.
So you always want to carry yourself and lead by example, that somebody's watching, and what do you want them to see? And so we have to keep that in mind too, because some people won't say anything, but they're definitely watching.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think about that a lot. And what you're saying, you said it, but you speak with other things than just words, right? And I when I had two kids during my time here, and I always want to thank the women that I saw end meetings or leave meetings to go pump because they were breastfeeding, because that paved a way for me. If I didn't see someone do that, I probably would have been nervous. Like, how do I actually navigate this? I'm going to tell them that's on my schedule and uproot the day and throw this into the middle of the day. It's like, but when you model it, you give everyone else permission to do it, right? And what an opportunity it is to do that for other women. And it happens a lot with raising kids. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, to talk about it as an incredible strength as a leader, to have that experience of raising kids. And I often think it's not just about kids are one life experience that often get pointed out in your kind of growth. It's life. It could be taking care of an older family member, anybody in your life. Talking about that is important because everybody has that, even people that don't have kids. But tell me a little bit about having children yourself and working and having long hours and how that's worked out for you.
Well, for me, in the beginning, again, if you remember, I said I was pregnant when I applied. I just had a baby when I came. And then I had a 2-year-old at the same time. I kind of got my CDL and also started driving at the same time. I mean, I had a driver's license since 16, but I never drove. I took the CTA. I got my CDL. I started driving. I got 2 kids. I'm new, so seniority plays a big part. And when you're new here, of how you can pick, your work. So I'm working. I have to work late PMs because I have to take my kids to school or daycare, and I have to be able to pick them up at the same time. And so I used to, when they became of school age, one went half a day, one went all day. And I worked late PM, 4 to about 2. So I used to come home, get off at 2 a.m., come home, get as much sleep as I can, be back up at 7 to get the 1 for all day school. Come back home, me and the little one, close my eyes a little bit more, take her for 12 o'clock, then come home, get ready for work, and then pick them up, drop them off at the babysitter, and go to work. And that was every day. And so it was very hard, but we make it work.
Yeah.
We make it look easy. We make it possible. And eventually, like I said, as they got older, I made career changes. I made moves within my status here. And they experienced all of that. They knew, come on, get your bag, get your sister, get your lunch. Don't forget your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Get in the car, let's go, put your seatbelt on. And it was just every day until it just became a part of my life. I never complained. It was like beautiful to have a day off, but it still wasn't like a day off because I had that routine minus going to work that day. I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
And they've, just like Jeannie, growing up in that family dynamic of CTA, now my 2 children work at CTA. Now they both have a career job. They know what it's like. And one of them is raising her own children through the same process, right? So it's just something that, again, as mothers, as women, this is just part of what we do. And we're so strong and so resilient. And I've been at job fairs where I've told my story. And now there's women working here to this day. And they say, hey, I saw you at that job fair. you told that story, you made me believe I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it. So again, it's that responsibility we have to share our stories and our struggles and make sure that everyone realizes that it's real and we all go through it.
I purposefully, when I introduced myself in this role, I wanted to make sure people knew I had 2 little kids for that reason, so they can see it. And I was thinking, by the time Friday comes, I'm so tired, like everybody. And I was thinking this morning, I'm going to ask Arlana and Jeannie how they get enough sleep. That's going to be one of the questions I ask. You just answered that you don't. You're just tired. So,
and that's it. With the nature of the job, one of the things that I could say, my kids grew up as I was evolving in it. So I experienced what it's like to be here and to not have kids. So they're only used to seeing me, as they got older. Now I'm in a position where I'm on call. Mommy may step over to the side at my baseball game because she's on the phone. But they understand that, yes, it's a demanding job. And at some point I may not be able to make something. But I am so grateful for my support system. My husband is, hands down, I feel father of the year, right? Because now they're at a point, I don't even know whose clothes is who, because he makes sure that they're good and getting them off, to handle everything. But at point when they were growing up, when I had a newborn and a 2.5-year-old, it was a team. You take this one over here, I'm going to take this one here. Anything can happen. And I think by having my children after I was already here and then definitely started moving through the company, it just helped me navigate. And then one of the best things is because having the CTA family, those grandparents that were working here are now retired, so they're stepping in, picking them up, from different, either it's sports events or through school. Of course, my mom doesn't have an option, she's already off, so I'm like, hey, can you go get the kids? So that family who already knows CTA culture, they are my backbone. Some days I do feel bad that I missed parent-teacher conference. I do feel bad that I had something that took my attention away where I couldn't show up to this game and I had to either stay late for a meeting or go somewhere, and it happened. But I make sure, now I may have to provide V-Bucks for Fortnite video games. They're gamers. So I may have to make up with some baseball apparel or something. But I think they just be trying to bribe me. But what I love about it now at this age, they fully understand. And my youngest, he thinks it's so cool that he can Google mommy because I didn't show up for like a parent-teacher conference and someone was like, hey, why did your mom come? He's like, because she works. And he Googled me on their little Chromebook and came home and told me that he did that. And I just told him, I'm like, see, I do have a job. What did you think that I did? Because, they think that, I schmooze with, the elves and the holiday train and things like that. But I really like that, just having my family. And I incorporate them here too, with different things that we do with the event, so they get an understanding of this is what mommy deals with, and it takes my time. It's not all just work. We do have fun, and I like that I get to show them that opportunity. So it's not a terminal that they don't walk into and people don't know that they're my children, because I like to expose them to, what it's like. I don't know if I have any future CTA employees just yet, but we may see.
Yeah, I know. I'm still trying to find the day to bring my 2.5-year-old son to a bus garage, but he might die of excitement. It might be too overwhelming every time I see that he dreams of a place like that existing. Tell me, what's some of the best advice you've gotten, whether about life or work, that you call upon and you think about?
For me, it was just, and I know people say it all the time, but you got to believe in yourself. Because I spent a lot of my life not believing in myself or not seeing myself as others saw me. So many people saw so many great things, and I never saw that. You know what I mean? Because I have always been, even like I said, going back to when my parents split, I had to kind of raise my little brother, right? At 8 years old, I had to grow up quick. I was like the lady of the house. Again, my father was a police officer. He worked the midnight shift. So now at 8 years old, I got to become 28 years old. You know what I mean? And so I guess I never took the time out to think about myself. I was always thinking about, okay, my little brother, I got to do this and I got to do that. And so it took me a long time to stop and smell the roses, as they say, and say, what about you? Because then, again, I worked straight out, in high school. I worked since I was 16, full time. I had my children, so I never had that time to really even find out who I am and what I want. And I still don't think I've really touched the surface, because I feel like there's something greater for me, and I don't know what it is right now. but I know that everything that I'm exposed to and that I'm learning here means something. There's a reason. There's a reason why I'm going through these levels. There's a reason why I'm sitting at this table right now talking to you. I feel like everything happens for a reason. So I'll continue to just, believe in myself and trust in my abilities because I'm worthy.
For me, is that you're not here by chance. And as a leader, honestly, one of the things just in hearing is that when you lead people in a leadership role, I wasn't given a crown, right? I wasn't given a crown to lead them, but I was given a responsibility to ensure that people who report to me have everything that they need. And I take that in several ways, not just giving them the skills to do the job or the tools and knowledge to understand within CTA, but really understand the importance of not only working hard, but also taking advantage of opportunities to take care of themselves. A lot of people can go, present company included, can go and you want to get this task, but now I am learning and my team is starting to see that. I always push, we hear the phrase, work-life balance. And I want that for them. And there was one person that I didn't want that for, and it ironically was myself. I never saw that. I thought everything that I was doing, or I may be involved in these different groups and things like networking opportunities, I'm always on the go. And now for me, it was always advice that I received, but to take your own advice. And that is something that try not to sweat the small things, right? Handle what you can handle. But if you do not take care of yourself, you are not of value to anyone, because once you pour out everything you have, you can't pour from an empty cup. So that is something that resonates with me even to this day. But it's definitely a message that I always convey to my team. And I want to definitely be that leader by example. I can't be off and I'm sending all these emails and I'm trying to tell them like, hey, take time for yourself. And they see that I'm not. So it's a work in progress. So I may not respond to the email, but I'm definitely taking a mental note for them. But again, it's something that for me, I truly believe will only make you a much better leader and definitely understanding the different dynamics within leadership when it comes to understanding yourself and then seeing how you compare, to your staff when it relates to them needing things, whether it's time off or just more things at work, them understanding that it's okay for me to take care of myself.
Absolutely. That's really good advice from both of you. And I just hearing you talk, before I ask my last question, this getting to hear from you and hear your thoughts is such an incredible gift. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I will wrap up with a final question. What is your favorite CTA memory at any point in your life, work, personal?
I'll go.
Yeah, go.
It's a lot, so I'll just go with one that I can think of that's more recent. My favorite memory was just last year. We were bringing back the Transit Jamboree, and the Rail Ops team was able to put the Jamboree on with no assistance. Years ago, we had the departments that helped, and it was a lot. And when it was over, some tears came down at the Jamboree, but it was a success. For me, it is a very good memory because the entire team was there. It was no task that was too big, no time too early that people needed to report. And although it's so many different things that I obviously could tell you from my career, I would just say that stands out to me as more recent because it was one where I truly felt a sense of pride, not just for me, but for the team. It felt like, a job well done. And it was an opportunity for so many people at CTA to come out and celebrate after not having it for so long. And I can honestly say I thought it was something that Rail Ops wasn't going to participate in. But I stayed optimistic. We stayed resilient. It's definitely one of the top 5 memories that I believe I'll always have because it's something that really meant a lot. I didn't want us to be counted out because of support that maybe we couldn't receive. But it strengthened my team and knowing like, hey, we could have been doing this, right? And that's what I'm forever grateful about. And it's a memory that I truly believe that will continue to stand the test of time because now we're gearing up for it again. Now everyone's coming with ideas and different things for us to do. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and it was one of those days where I felt like there were so many texts and emails like, that was great. That was great. Everyone loved it. Yeah. So, yeah, great memory.
Well, I could touch on a memorable moment, easy, just based off of what she said, and that was the successful plan that we put together for the DNC. Because, and I say that, but I felt so important. There's a character on The Wire that everybody tells me I look like, and I remind them of, and that I was. Oh, you know. And just to be working with the Secret Service and meeting with the Secret Service and having all these meetings and the way the operators felt such a sense of pride and belonging to this city. I took a group of them, and they called them stealth buses, so I named them the Stealths. They went and got shirts made. They call themselves the Stealths. The way we were lined up at the United States, the way that was all organized, and how we successfully pulled that off. It was like one of the moments in history to be able to say I was a part of that, a pivotal part, and an intricate part of it. And I was so proud to be involved in that. And just the way, oh my God, I gave them like speeches, and I was doing like Mission Impossible. I was like, this mission, if you choose to accept it. I mean, it was great. I loved every moment of that. Like, I wouldn't mind us doing that again. It was a lot. But we did it. And the way we pulled it off and the way it turned out and how everybody was involved. And I'm talking about all the way down to the frontline employees. And how they felt about that. And they worked. And they were out there a long time, and there was a lot going on. But they really, really felt like they really accomplished something. It really meant something to them to be in operations during that event. So,
Absolutely. That's another great memory. I remember walking through the gates, and I actually gasped. And I said, oh my gosh, when I saw our buses. And I said, we are the DNC. We did. You walk into the United Center, behind the gates, and the United Center was kind of like an afterthought. And it was like, look at our buses. Look at what we're doing. And being at the control center and the pride there, 100%. Thanks for sharing those memories. I can't thank you enough for spending this time with me on the first ever episode of Moving Experiences, Stories CTA. This is going to be hard to beat, ladies. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Moving Experiences, Stories of the CTA. I want to thank my guests, Jeannie and Arlana, for joining me today. And of course, thank you to our listeners. As always, for more information about CTA, visit us online at transitchicago.com, where you can also sign up to receive our monthly newsletter or connect with us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Nora Leerhsen, and I look forward to seeing you on CTA.